Good morning, everyone. Jim and John here, coming
Morning.
to you live from the Green Valley Training Office, Training Center, Training Venue, all the above. And we're here. Oh, man, are we excited?
This was a radio studio.
What's that?
I thought this was the radio studio.
No, yeah, whoops. People think we actually have a big old studio? Yeah, okay. So we're excited, right, John? I mean, look what we have. Look what we have in the middle of it.
We've got the numbers man here.
Wow. More than numbers, man. It does so much more than numbers, but numbers, well, statistics seem to be. Were you always interested? Chad Roberts, by the way, everyone.
Hello.
Chad Roberts.
Hello.
Well, before we even ask any questions, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and your history? We know a little bit about you.
Sure. So I've been in real estate for 16 years or so, about 16 years. So that means that I saw what happened in real estate during the previous peak, the Great Recession, and I've been a full-time broker salesperson through that entire time. And so a lot of my interest in keeping up with numbers is, should I have known what was coming? What can I do to what could I have done? How can I make sure that we're prepared for whatever the next the next thing is. So yeah, I mean, just a naturally analytical person, and wanted to kind of had my finger on the pulse and be able to give data-driven responses to my buyers and sellers.
So I got to ask you, sorry, but given the fact that we all went through that, and I didn't see anything coming. I did not. I personally did not. Anyone that said they did, God bless them, but I never did, obviously. But given the fact that if you had been following the numbers then, Chad, you think you would have seen it coming, or no?
Well, it was a different time. I mean, what happened during the Great Recession had never really happened before. We never had a period where we were just handing out money to anybody with a pulse.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing Nina loans.
Stated incomes.
Yeah, stated income, stated assets.
Yeah.
So literally you would just tell the lender what you were comfortable with. They didn't check how much money you had in the bank. They didn't check how much money you made. If you had a high credit score, which you would have if you had never purchased anything, then you would have an almost unlimited amount of cash that you could buy a house and maybe more with no down payment. So it was just so many things that lined up so that it made it incredibly easy for people to walk away when things went sideways. Sure. Okay. So what we have today, I feel, is very, very different from the previous, recession.
Well, there's money. There's money in all these houses now. Yeah, the houses that were purchased a lot of them were cash. California money's in all over the valley. So even though the market shift is now, we're seeing that there's still a lot of cash in all these houses. That's making a big difference.
I agree with that. I do not believe that we have the scenario, the setup for massive waves of short sales and foreclosures, because everybody has equity. So I saw a report yesterday that said that 0.8% of owners today in Southern Nevada have negative equity. Mm-hmm. So, think about when you would have had to have purchased in order to not have equity. We've been doing down payment loans since 2009, 2010. Everything changed after the Great Recession. Mm-hmm. We're not set up for the kind of failure that we saw then.
So now let's take a look at the present. So the last 2 years, COVID hit us, and all of a sudden inventory started dropping. It became a seller's market. So for 2 solid years, we've been riding this wave of sellers. Buyers were coming in, and there could be 25 offers overnight. And there was a mix of cash. They were going above list. They were going, paying for no inspections, no waiving, everything. And so all of that now has changed, because all of a sudden the bricks go on. We get a little bit of an interest rate jug up, and all of a sudden everybody stops and slows down, and we're slowly trying to even out the market. And now they're becoming a buyer's market. So on that note, I'm going to turn that over to you, because you've analyzed this whole thing. from where we are right now. So I want you to show everybody what you're seeing.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I want to give everyone the ability to run a lot of these numbers on your own, for you to
Yes,
see them
yes.
on your own, because this isn't just about my opinion. This is about our agents being able to make better decisions, show their expertise, show their experience, and be able to show their clients that they know what they're talking about. So it's not just about presenting; it's about giving you the tools as well. Can we
There
pull
you
up the other deal here? We're going to share the screen, and we're going to. All right. So everybody on this call has access to this, probably, right? Is that
Yes.
true?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if we let's see, if we scroll down towards the bottom here, at the bottom we have. Actually, I think I will need that mouse.
Look at that graph right there.
So at the bottom, thank you. At the bottom, what we have is the market stats by showing time.
That was Vanna White, by the way, that turns our letters for us.
All right. So down here, this gray bar is going to bring up some other stats. Okay, when you press on that, that's going to bring you to this page. And on this page, what we're looking for is this fast stats. Okay. I don't really look at any of the other graphs on here. You could do more really cool analytical stuff on here if you wanted to. But what I do is just go to fast stats. Over here, you're going to tap on monthly indicators. And then view report. Okay, so those are all of the clicks that you're going to go through, and it's going to bring up a report that shows you this. So this is an important tool. This shows a bunch of different metrics provided by your association that all come out of MLS. And then it shows the most recent month, the end of the most recent month compared to the end of the same month last year. So we have a lot of info on here, but for the most part, I really only care about a couple of these. So we know that all of pricing is a function of supply and demand. So when we look at our supply, that is here, inventory of homes for sale. This is how many homes at the end of each of these months were available for sale. And what we have right now is just under 8,000 as of the end of July. Okay, 8,000 homes for sale. And up here we have pending sales, which I believe is our demand. Some people want to say that closed sales is demand. I argue that closed sales is what the demand was a month or so ago.
True.
Okay. So, so I look at closed sales, but when I think about what the demand is versus what the supply is, so that I can figure out in which direction pricing is going, I look at pending sales for the demand of homes. Okay, and demand is way down. Now, this graph only shows us 2 years, so it's not super useful. But this report will show you a lot more. It'll show you about 15 years in a row. But we can see some other things like housing affordability. We can see things like months of supply. I don't give a whole lot of weight to the months of supply, because when we talk about what does 3 months mean, well, between the Great Recession and today, we've been at 3 months of inventory a couple of different times, and they all meant drastically different things for the market. So looking at this number by itself is, to me, isn't very useful, but it certainly does help us to see, yeah, we've got a lot more homes compared to how many are closing this month than we did 4 months ago.
So am I to read that correct? Right there where it says, Chad, month supply of inventory, we went from last year at this time, or July, 1.6, and now we're 2.8, a 75% increase.
75% increase.
Wow.
But that's a year ago for this month, right?
Right.
If we look at where we were at the beginning of the the year, we were at something like 0.8 months of inventory.
Right.
So this is a crazy jump from just about 4 months ago.
I mean, that's very telling, is it not?
That by
Very
itself
telling,
is pretty
very
telling.
Yeah.
So if you were basically to remove the previous year, same month, and put on January 31st of this year up to where we are now, that number would not be 1.6. It would be more like 0.8,
Correct.
which would be probably one of the lowest we've ever had.
Yeah.
Which would mean it'd be even more drastic than what it's doing, right?
Right. So let's see these on a bigger scale. Inventory of supply. Inventory is our supply of homes. How many homes we have available. So up here on this, you'll have these numbers, the raw numbers. For the most part, as I'm looking at this and as I'm presenting to clients, I show the graph. Now remember, this is the end of July, so last month. So we're almost at the end of August. And so the August numbers will come out about September 5th or so. September 5th or so. So this is why I want you to be able to read this, because you'll want to jump in about a week and see what our August numbers were. But what we can see is a super sharp increase in the number of available homes. Okay, a big increase. A lot of sellers are trying to sell now in a little bit of a panic that they may have missed the wave, right?
True.
So we're seeing a lot of sellers. And when we look at demand, we see a lot of new listings coming on the market at the same time that we're seeing a pretty big drop in demand. What I want to show you here, where's my mouse? There it is that, so here's the craziness of the recession. And so our numbers are a little erratic here, but as soon as things started to normalize, we saw a very clear and consistent pattern. We saw that we had more, remember this is pending sales. So we had more sales in the spring, a little bit less in the summer, and then we had a nice dip in the winter, right? As we get into this sort of November, December, January period, we always see a sharp decline because people are thinking about other things. So spring, summer, winter, spring, summer, winter, spring, summer, winter. Every year we can see a very clear trend. We sell more homes in the spring, a little bit less in the summer, and then a lot less in the winter. Here's the pandemic. Suddenly, our demand dropped so far. So you guys remember what that was like. We didn't know if we could do business. We didn't know if we were allowed to show properties.
Where's it showing in there?
That is, so
That
the
big old
dot
dip there.
along the line is January. So this is February, this is March, and this is April.
Yeah.
So the number of people putting in offers that get accepted with earnest money deposit dropped significantly. And then almost all at once, everybody figured out they needed more house. They needed a home office. They needed room for a home school. They needed a home gym. They needed home entertainment. Everything was happening from home, and wherever you lived, your place wasn't enough. It was enough for when you were gone all day and you just came home to watch TV, go to sleep, and start it over. But it wasn't enough for this new paradigm that we had where everybody was staying home all the time. So demand went up. We saw basically 6 months straight of this super high demand. Never seen this before. And if we can go back to the history of Las Vegas, we've never seen a period where there was so much demand all at once. A little bit of a dip over the winter, but not like before, not like we usually see. And then right back up, very strong demand, a little bit of a dip in the winter. And then this is unfortunately where the Fed decided to start cranking up rates. So they let us know pretty early this year that they were going to raise interest rates. Was it 6 or 8 times? Their plan was to hike up interest rates 6 or 8 times through the course of 2022. Now, a lot of people argue they should have seen what was happening with pricing sooner and started that process sooner.
I think they were focused on inflation at that point, as opposed to pricing in the market, right?
Well, and inflation for them means the pricing in the market.
Yeah.
You know, part of it was the large machine of government works so slowly. And so much of their focus was on giving people free money because there were people who were out of work that I don't think that they were watching these warning signs of all of our pricing for homes and everything else is going up so fast that we should curb that early. So remember, we're talking about the Fed. This is the Federal Reserve Board. We call it the Federal Open Market Committee. This is basically the branch of the government that controls what interest rates are for them to loan large amounts to large banks for very short-term loans, and then those banks turn around and they use that money and they lend it to people like us. So they also set the rate. That's the rate that banks can charge each other for these types of loans. So that's what we talk about when we talk about this this particular interest rate, this type of interest rate. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's their only real tool, is to crank that up and then or down, and that will help to limit or expand the amount of available money, the cost of borrowing money.
But isn't it true that they cranked it up back to where it was prior to COVID?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Yep. Let me get to that in just a second. I love your questions. And at home, anybody else with questions, please feel free to type them in, and somebody will see that probably. And then, okay. And then we will address that as well. So, but for this slide, we're just talking about what is demand, and demand dropped like a rock. Demand is dropping currently, right now. Demand is dropping at a time when inventory is rising. Okay. And so we know by the law of supply and demand that really only one thing can happen to price right now during this type of scenario. We're going to look at closed sales real quick here, even though I don't believe that closed sales equals demand, but it still gives us a sense of what is actually happening. So we are looking at this pretty severe drop here. This was the pandemic, and this was people not being able to leave their houses, people not being able to show properties, not knowing what was going to happen. So this is the closings, the low point in the closings, and we're not there. But if we look at things on a weekly basis, we kind of were for a minute. Okay, so that's closings. Now here is the effect on price. Where's my mouse? No, there it is. Okay. So this was our previous peak. Actually, our previous peak was right about here. It was in August of 2006. So we had this sharp drop, a float down to our true bottom in January 2012, and then a pretty steady increase since 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Here was the pandemic. Here, this little jag right here was a little bit of a drop and then pretty steep incline. And what we're seeing now is a turn in the market. Okay, here's the thing that you guys know that nobody else knows. This turn looks very mild on this report. And this is a monthly report, but in the monthly data, it tends to average out what's happening on a weekly basis. So if we look at the weekly data, which I pull every week, so you won't find this on that report, I'm looking at how many closings there are each week, what the median price is, and the median price per square foot. And so what we're seeing is that on June 12th, the week ending June 12th was our true peak. This is median price. 500,000 was our true peak. And from there, we hit 480, 480, 475, 467, these big drops in numbers. Okay, so it looks like we've got 2 weeks in a row where we're popping back up from this true low point here of 440. If I show that to you on a graph, it looks like this.
So June was our high point then.
June was our peak. June, well, literally the week ending June 12th.
That looks a little more severe when you look at it that way.
This looks more severe,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
is because if you take these numbers, if you
Mhm.
take these July numbers and you were to average these out, they don't. Sorry, here they don't look so bad. If you took these June numbers and you average them out, they don't look so bad. It doesn't look like we hit
Right.
500 and then we dropped to 440. But when you look at it on a more granular level,
Mhm.
it's a little more severe. So red here is median price. So we can see this median price dropped pretty significantly, pretty quickly. And we see these 2 weeks where we're bouncing up a little bit. I don't know what that means yet, right? That might be temporary. It might bounce up and then back down. It might level off, but this is the trend. We've dropped significantly from our peak, and the monthly numbers don't really represent that. Now, this green line is price per square foot, and look how even if the price is dropping, the price per square foot is really trying to hold on. So that is something that I think we are going to see it drop more, but this just means that in this sort of intermediary period, we're going to see people who can't afford more, so they're buying as much as they can still, but they're buying a smaller house.
Mhm.
So we're seeing that price per square foot trying to hold on.
If you look at the tail end of that graph, you see there with the median price, you see it trying to eke back up again. I see it. Right?
I hope so. Yeah. Yep. I hope so.
How do we know that's a trend? We don't, do we?
We don't.
No.
And that's the thing about trends. And anytime you hear economists speaking about what's happening with the market, they all have to look at what has happened to figure out what this is.
Mhm.
They talk about that you're in a recession 6 months after
Mhm.
it started, right? So that's the challenge here, is that the only data we really truly have is historical data. Only in July and then in August can we say, turns out that was our peak.
Yeah. Wow. Whoa, what is this now?
Now, this is closings per week. So we look at the number of closed each week, and
Well, the trend there is obviously.
How do they go up all like that and then just drop back down so fast?
just because it's weekly stuff. Sometimes something will push and we'll have a lot more, 1 week, and then that means that we've sort of front filled that week, and the next week is going to be a lot less. So this stuff is almost a little bit easier to look at on a monthly basis, where we can round out these ups and downs, because the average there still exists.
So if you were to trend line that, you would see a decline.
A very sharp decline in the number of closings. Yes. So
what's that dip prior to? I don't know if we can see that far, but it looks like.
So this is 2020.
Okay.
Sorry, this is 2020. This is the week we shut everything down. So all non-essential personnel were basically, on furlough or fired or unemployed at that point. So this is the number of closings. This was about 45 days after that, right? The number of closings. Some people stayed in escrow. A lot of people pulled out. No new people were going into escrow because we couldn't access houses. We didn't know how to write contracts at that time. It was a mess. So this was the lowest point of the pandemic, where we literally couldn't show houses, where we couldn't make offers and go into escrow, or at least nobody had that figured out. And what I want to show is that we hit that point 2 weeks ago in the number of closings again, not because we couldn't see houses, but because there was a lot of fear in the market and people drew back. That's the market volatility is purely based on, right now, in my opinion, people's fear of what does this interest rate mean. So we hit this low point we're bouncing back a little bit. So hopefully this in general starts to inch back up. But that is also very telling right now. We
Right.
want to make sure that we're sharing that with our people because the number of closings, we know anecdotally that, gee, it feels a little bit slow. This kind of shows you what that means for real.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
You pay attention to this type, housing affordability? Is that something that you track as well?
Yes. The challenge with housing affordability is that it's based on some very hard numbers,
Mhm.
like the median price, but it's also based on some other numbers that I don't really know what the source is. I don't know where they're pulling the data. So
Yeah.
in other words, if you read up here, it is saying that the affordability is the amount that the median household income could afford. What percentage could the median household income afford? So when we look at this 63 here somewhere, I keep losing my mouse. When we hit this 63, that means that right now, as of last month, the median income for Las Vegas is only 63% of what it needs to be in order to purchase the median priced home, right? So let's look at that on a graph.
So if you go back to August of 2021, looks like it was 93.
93
Yeah,
is what it
yeah,
says. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what am I looking at here? Again, we're looking at single family. We don't care so much about the townhouse condos, but in the single family, we're down here below the 100% line. So if the median income is 100% of what you would need to make in order to
Mhm.
purchase the median priced home, that feels like a very stable,
Sure.
that's affordable. That makes a lot of sense. When your median income only buys 63% of the median price, that's kind of a red flag, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, I think that number one, I don't know what the income portion is based on, because it is supposed to be the median income for Las Vegas. Well, Las Vegas had an influx of California
Mhm.
buyers,
True,
right?
true,
Were their
true.
incomes factored into this formula? I don't know, but because I think that in a lot of 2021 2020, as prices were rocketing up, I don't think it was really 100% of income matched with
Mm.
the median price.
Seems pretty far fetched to me.
Yeah. So, but we can definitely see here the median income is far below what you need in order to purchase the median priced home. So, so yes, I look at that, and also I help sellers understand that as well. That's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
That is, I mean, it means that no matter what your price point is, there aren't as many people who can afford to pay it. Okay, so before we get into interest rates, what kind of questions do you guys have for me, like up to this point? Excellent. I don't know anything about that, but thank you, Tina. Yeah. So I don't know about the changes in credit limits, but that makes some sense.
But the fear, back to what I said earlier, the fear is that the interest rates keep going up and up and up. We're hovering still around that 5.5. That's where it was prior to the pandemic, right?
Yes.
So-
So let me show you that exact thing that you're saying on a graph. Let me see. How can I make this a little bit smaller so you can? Okay, I guess I can't, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
Right there.
Let's keep this. So, all right. So just know that the federal funds rate is the blue, and the 30-year fixed rate mortgage average in the U.S. is the red. Okay, so this is our mortgage rate. average across all of our states. And then this is the federal funds rate, which is a definable constant number. Now I'm only going back to 1985, but if you go to this website, you'll look up mortgages, Fred. You can switch the reporting to overlay anything that you want. So it's a wonderful website. It's constantly updated. So this is going to be a great way for you to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening. All right. So
And obviously they kind of follow each other, right? A little bit.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Now the federal funds rate doesn't set the interest rate for mortgages, right?
Right.
Banks do that. Banks decide what they will charge for interest, but the government decides what they will charge banks for the money they're going to lend out. Okay, so so sometimes you see it's a little bit tighter and sometimes it's not. The gray bars here represent recessions. So here,
Right at 2020,
yes,
just to the left of
2020,
it. So
yes.
let's say 2019, it was higher than it is right now.
Yes,
Mhm.
that is correct. That
But
is
people,
correct.
the people aren't
People
grasping
forgot.
that. They forgot
People
all that.
forgot. Yes.
Yeah. It's just the way it is. It's always been that way.
Mhm.
They tend to forget that, that's like saying we had 17% interest rates once upon a time, and
Yeah.
This whole thing, I mean, this market change is happening so fast. Everybody is just panicking because of interest rates, and interest rates are just going back to where they normally were, how we lived 3 years ago.
Yeah. And prior to that, it's never been. Remember, on this website, you can go back to the beginning of the Federal Open Market Committee. So you can track these
Wow.
rates back to, I think, 1955. I started it here because in the 80s, between 1980 and 1985, there was some weird stuff happening. I can't get anybody to tell me why the federal funds rate would oscillate that sharply up and down. It doesn't make any sense. The only thing anybody's ever told me was that the people in that industry did a lot of coke in those years, and like I don't know anything about that.
that
So,
could be 90% of it
who
right
knows?
there.
I don't.
Well, we had inflation off the charts back then, though.
That's true.
Inflation was unbelievably high back then.
Yeah.
When
And
Mr.
there-
Carter was president.
There may not have been enough data to say, okay, let's slow this down. Data moves so fast today. So anyway, so
Our
if we
radio
look at
station is going to get a bad name now. We're talking about drugs. You realize that?
so
We've had it good for so long. We've had it good for a very long
well,
time,
yes.
right?
All right.
Suffice to say, we've had it.
Okay,
Very
let
good.
me show you what I'm trying to show you here. The Great Recession is here, 2008, 2009, everything dumped. The government really only has this one big tool to manage a very complex economy. And the main tool is to crank rates up or down. So they cranked their rates down to zero, or basically zero, and they did that for 5.5 years straight. During that time, we got used to a 3.5% rate,
Yes.
mortgage rate, 3%, 4%. So we got used to that. During this period, that felt normal, and then all of a sudden, it dropped even further.
Mhm.
So this is the federal funds rate. As it climbed, lenders they did raise a little bit. They tried to maintain. When we had the pandemic, the Fed dropped it back to zero. So we've got I don't want to say a generation, but almost. We've got a ton of people right now who believe that what we have seen over these last 12 years or so of 3.5% rates, 4% rates, that is normal, and that 6% today
Yes,
is
yes.
completely outrageous. And so really, I believe that once people come to accept that this is going to be a way of life for a while,
For a while.
then I think that we're going to see a lot of demand pick up quite a bit. People still need houses. People still need to live somewhere.
Well, it's a buyer's market now. Inventory comes up, and even though rates are coming,
I don't know if Chad was believing what you just said there, but look on his face.
well,
I saw that look on his face.
a
Wait a
buyer,
minute. Oh, hold up. is it a buyer's market right now?
Not now. I said it's going to be very shortly.
Okay,
a
well, you said
buyer's
right
market.
And Chad went like, whoa, I don't know about that.
It might be a little soon, but I think that that's really coming. I mean, I really
There
do
you go.
think that that's coming. But personally, I don't. In my business, at least, I don't talk about what is a buyer's market and what is a seller's market, because what that means to the people that you're talking to is that if you're not that thing, don't do that thing.
Yeah, true.
And so I don't really talk about it in those terms. I like to talk about it in terms of here's what's happening, here's where we just were, here's where I think we're going. And as we talk about those things, then your need for moving or not moving, you can start to weigh those things in. And it's just kind of a business choice that I made to not talk about things in terms of buyers or sellers market. Because in a buyer's market, you still have sellers that need to sell. So should they wait a year, or should they go ahead and move to the state where they just got a new job, right? If someone still has to move, they still have to move. So it's
And if you're working with a seller, you obviously they're going to be a buyer, so you wouldn't want to be talking about it's the buyer's market. Then,
it's a great
like,
point.
Well, so in other words, I'm going to sell my house too cheap, right? And then I got to go out in the world and buy a house, right?
Yeah. So in any case, but yes,
Well, you're gonna sell your house cheaper, because what's gonna happen is the appraisers are gonna start hitting you with numbers that you're gonna have to deal with on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
Your banks are only gonna lend you what the appraisals
Yeah.
say. So if houses start selling for a lesser price, then that's what the appraisers are gonna find, and that's what we're gonna deal with. We kind of throw the appraiser under the bus.
Well,
That's
not
what's
very
in-
long ago, we weren't even getting appraisal. We were just saying anything above appraisal we'll pay. Anything
Exactly.
It was
So
nuts. So
it was- well, I still think it's going to be a little nuts, because California is still coming our way. We have a lot of California people still
we got a
coming.
lot of Californians moving
And they
here.
don't
We're
care.
still at about
need to-
39%.
That's when we're toward the end. We need to talk about that, because there's still a tremendous amount of people coming here to buy. Right?
Yes.
Well, they hear of all the activities that's going on. We have the Raiders. We got the Super Bowl coming in,
right,
in a
right.
year. We got the hockey team. We got the girls' professional basketball team coming. Possibly having a professional baseball team. NBA's talking about
Mhm,
coming.
mhm.
We are becoming this is the place to be.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
And
Amen.
they talk about the water a little bit, but I think the water is going to be fine the way they're planning around all this. They know that all this is coming.
I love all of that.
In fact, there was a comment today I heard in the news this morning that the lake's up 3 feet.
Well,
Now,
I
that
heard-
doesn't sound like a lot of water, but it's a lot of water. 3 feet it
yeah,
came
I
up.
didn't hear it that much. But
Yeah.
if it did, that's great. That's
That
phenomenal.
does sound like a lot of water.
From almost a month of rain. That's not too bad.
Yeah.
We
That's
had,
all we
well,
need.
this is the biggest raining season we had in how many years? God, I
Mhm.
don't remember it raining this much in a long
not at
time.
all.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So does that make sense? We just need to, as soon as people get used to paying
Yes.
6%,
Makes all sense.
we're
in the
going
world.
to be fine, because 6% was the low end of where we've been for the last 40 years.
Now,
Okay.
If you looked into your crystal ball, what time frame would you say they'd be used to paying?
Nope.
I mean,
Nope.
can't do it.
answer
Nope.
that one.
Darn.
I don't know.
Darn.
I don't
okay.
know. Look, every once in a while you corner me with a question like that, and I
I
answered the
back
last
away.
one, which
But
was
I'm not doing it again.
do you remember the last one? I was sitting over here, and you were like, Chad, are
Mhm.
we going to see a market adjustment?
Yeah.
Like, you point blank, you asked me in front of a room full of people, and at a time when prices were just climbing nonstop,
mhm.
and I was like, yes. And you were and like the room, the blood just drained out of everybody's face. So yeah, so no, I'm not. I don't know how long, but it's interest rates. So the Fed has to decide when to turn off that faucet or to turn back that faucet.
Sure.
And so, but again, they are a very large machine looking not at the Las Vegas
Mhm.
market, but at the entirety of the
Mhm.
U.S., trying to figure out the best thing to do for everybody.
True.
True.
And I think that's a point to be made, because the Las Vegas market is unlike every other market in
Mhm.
the country. I mean, it's
Mhm.
unique to itself.
It is. So, there is a very real risk that we overshoot. There's a real risk that we overshoot.
Overshoot in what way?
in the way that they don't stop hiking up rates until prices drop further than
Got it.
the 100 mark, where median income buys median price
Got it.
Wow.
in our market.
This
Okay,
looks fun. This looks
here-
cool.
Here's the reason it's not all gloom and doom. There are still opportunities, and especially if you can think long term,
Mhm.
then we know that prices have to go up. We know that real estate is the thing to do, the smartest way to spend your money in the long run. Part of that is because we have $22 billion in projects, and 10 billion of it is currently under construction. Resorts World is done. Raider Stadium is done. Raider Stadium is incredibly successful.
Right.
It is bringing so many people and so much money into the city. It's ridiculous. We've
Mhm.
never had a place before that could hold whatever it is. How big is it? 67,000 people.
Mhm.
We've just never had that before. So we've also got the Silver Knights coming in, or in basically that is in. We've got a network of tunnels underneath the city, connecting the whatever it is, the strip to the convention center. Madison Square Garden is a real thing. Fountain Blue is a real thing. Those are on their way. Haas Automation is awesome. This is an example that not everything in Las Vegas is tourism related. This is a company that builds the machines that a ton of different companies use to build their product. So this is pretty exciting. This is going into
there
Henderson, in
sits
fact.
Hundreds of jobs right in our backyard at Realty One Group Green Valley right here, right? Fair to say?
Employment growth by state, we are the number one fastest growing job market in the U.S.
Wow.
by state. Also, if you look at the city numbers, we're number one by the city numbers as well. So job growth is higher here than any other state. Population growth is one of the fastest growing. So we look at how many people are moving here from other states. And so all of these people need a place to live. There is no way, if we look at supply and demand, there's no way that we can have a demand shortage over the long run. Here's something that nobody's talking about, and honestly, I hope nobody's listening, because this is Clark County. This is Clark County. This is a bunch of super smart people. Okay, down here at the bottom, this is a comprehensive planning department, applied analysis, huge brain trust over there of real estate analysis guys, U.S. Census Bureau, UNLV College of Business and Economic Research. They are saying that in the next 12 years or so, we're on target to add 600,000 people to Clark County. In that period of time, we can only add about 200,000 homes. Okay, that tells me that in the long run, we will continue to have a housing shortage. And so the price of real estate in the long term has to go up.
Did you hear that, people?
It just has to.
There it is, right there.
There's so much happening that, yes, we are seeing a temporary drop in price. I don't know how long we're going to see
Can
that.
you sign this slide first?
That's impressive, my man. That's
Mhm.
impressive.
So it sounds like we have maybe another question. The months of inventory. So months of inventory is basically how many homes are available now, how many homes did we close now. So generally speaking, that is as of July 31st, we closed how many homes, and as of July 31st, how many homes are available for sale. And so the idea behind that is if we put no new homes on the market and we sold the same number of homes in the coming months as we did this last month, how many months would it take for us to chew through that available inventory. And that's part of the reason that I don't like to use that as a point of analytics, because neither of those two things could ever happen. It could never happen that we don't put new homes on the market. It could never happen that we sell the exact same number of homes for the coming months. But it is kind of useful as a quick, like at a glance. I'm just saying, don't base any decisions on that alone. I'm not sure if that answered the question.
Well, I think it did perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Are there any other questions on there?
Right.
How many people are on there?
So wait a minute, Chad.
Yeah.
It looks like we're towards the end there.
Yeah, this is the end.
So we have a huge supply coming up because we're going to have a shortage of inventory. Fair to say, or no?
Say that again.
We have a huge demand, I should
Demand,
say.
yes.
Not supply.
Yes.
We have a huge demand coming up.
Correct.
And it looks like it's going to continue for many, many years. Well, enough years to come.
Well, that's
That
why
we
all
care
the
about.
apartment complexes are going up. Apartment complexes are going up all over the place.
Yeah.
That's probably why.
And you're going to see that again. We saw that. So in that 2003 to 2009 period, we started seeing a whole lot of high density projects going in. So these were the zero lot lines. These were the you've got one big
Cluster.
shared driveway that
Mhm.
services 4 homes.
Mhm.
So you have the rear load where all the fronts of the houses all face each other, and in the back is an alley of driveways. Not driveways. You don't get a driveway, but an alley of garages. So those are high density projects. You're going to see more of those. Builders are going to start doing more of the 3 stories. Pulte just had a grand opening yesterday at their new Summerlin community, where they're building 3-story homes on tiny little lots
Mhm.
in Summerlin. So yeah, we're gonna see a lot more builders trying to put more homes, more living spaces at least on less land.
Well,
Yeah.
in the long term, we have big demand,
Mhm.
and it's going to continue for a while.
Yep.
We can't build as many homes as we'd like
Correct.
to feed that demand.
Correct.
We have multiple projects going on right now that are going
Yes.
to feed the economy in a big, big way.
Yes.
Plus more coming.
It's nothing but, I mean, is it all good news? It's all good news.
Yeah. We're in a very temporary, or I hope it's very temporary. We're in a position right now where people are panicking. People are worried about what's going to happen, and I think that we'll be able to look back at some point in the future and see. We're gonna see that and be able to analyze it just like we did when we had COVID, right? When everything shut down for COVID, we'll be able to look back and say, this is what was on everybody's mind, was 24/7 news saying the world's on fire, everything's collapsing. I got to tell you though, the world's not on fire.
No.
There is so many good things
Right,
happening in the
right.
world today. They just announced that there is a new flavor of ice cream. There is a hot dog. There's an Oscar Mayer flavored hot dog right now. Just got released.
How'd you work that in, dude? How did you manage to work that in?
I'm just telling you, there are good things
He's
happening
multi-marketing here
in the world.
So
No,
you're going to look back and say,
it's horrible.
why didn't I make a real estate investment in 2022?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
John, go out and buy something right away.
Maybe not right away.
Impressive. Questions? Do we have any other questions at all? It's insane. It's insane the amount of information you've doled out there in the last 35 minutes, 40 minutes.
Well,
Sure.
it's done in a way that nobody else looks at it, and that's why it's so special.
Thank you.
Because we don't look at most of the agents, even the top producers, don't look at the way you take the numbers and make them work.
Mhm.
And these are true. These are what's really happening. That we see the sugar coated numbers. You know, the easy
Right,
numbers.
right.
Yeah, you've taken it down, dig really deep on it.
Thank you. Yes. So the monthly numbers still have an extraordinary amount of value. So
Mhm.
looking at these things on the 5th or the 6th, please jump in and see what's happening, because that will be the data that you use for the next 30 days or so. Still incredibly important stuff. One of the other things that you as agents can do to help your people along is, if you're talking about buyers, maybe help them understand that, if rates are a little bit higher and now prices are a little bit lower, then you're still getting the same kind of value in your living space as you might have gotten previously. And maybe it's not such a bad thing that you didn't buy in that crazy period. Maybe you didn't miss it.
Well said.
I believe that my job is to find the very best thing for my buyers in the moment that they need to buy. So if you've got people who have to do something right now, then I believe I'm going to help them. I'm going to educate them so that they can see where everything is. But I'm going to help them fill that need, and the same with sellers. So
What do you know about renters? So what's happening with the rental market through all this? Have you looked at that?
I have not. No.
Okay. Just curious if rents have been jumping.
Based on the number that Chad revealed here, rents aren't coming down anytime soon either. Would you say?
I don't know that.
Okay, well, we won't need down for that.
He won't sign that
That's right.
slide.
That's
No,
right.
you know what? I don't.
Back to the hot dog
If I
ice cream again. What was that all about? Ice cream that tastes like hot dog.
Yeah. Who was that for?
Not
I
me.
mean, like
Dogs.
Dogs?
like I get almond milk ice cream. I understand who that's for, right? I understand tofu hot dogs. I understand who that's for. Who's like, give me the worst part of each food and then
Right.
just mash it together.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know who wants that, but I know it exists.
That's crazy.
Right.
That doesn't even sound good.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, so that's what I think is going on. There are a lot smarter people working on this and trying to figure everything out. Keep an eye on what the Fed does. They have monthly meetings, and usually before their meetings, they'll talk about a lot of this, a lot of what they plan on doing ahead of time. And then just, like I said, there was that Fred website. That's a great way to keep your finger on the pulse.
Wow,
We
yeah.
get monthly reports inside of your, here, actually, I'm going to
Could you
go.
review one more time how you got to where you were? Because it took you all of maybe 3.5 seconds to get there. And
Yeah,
it
let me just
sits
show
there
you
day
again.
after day. And no, I guarantee not a lot of folks use it, right?
Sure. Yeah. So we go here to your single sign-on. Down here under fast stats,
Perfect.
you go to more stats,
Mhm.
and you can actually click anywhere on this gray line. Before I show you that, I do want to tell you inside this applied analysis
Uh-huh.
button, there is some amazing graphs and data and details in here. Your rental question
Mhm.
is going to be found in there, for instance. I don't know if I have access to jump into that while we're on this, but that's where you're going to find that information. But you go here, more stats. It'll take you to this site, and instead of delving into this, which is kind of clunky in my opinion and doesn't give me the full view,
Right.
I want to see fast. What does that say? Okay, stats.
That's that.
Fast stats. Tongue twister. And then you go to monthly indicators here, because I don't really care about these guys. No offense. They're all-
But you track the monthly number as opposed to week. Well, you use the weekly, but you track the monthly. Fair to say?
The monthly only exists through the
Okay. Mhm.
LVR. So monthly indicators will default to the greater Las Vegas area. And then you go to view report. Okay. And then that takes you to the report, kind of a long report, 15 or so pages
Mhm.
that contains this overview and then a bunch of other good stuff.
And do you really focus on the median sales price opposed to the average sales price? Fair
Yeah,
to
I
say?
do. I really
Okay.
look at the median as opposed to the average. The median says if we closed 2,000, whatever that says, 65 homes. If we close 2,065 homes, then we're going to pull that data. We're going to sort it in price order. So we, the 95, 100, 105, 110, 120, all the way out to the 6 billion, the 7 billion, whatever it is that we sold in that particular month. And then you look at the middle number. So in this case, you would be the 1,033. The one that is 1,033 in that data set is your median home. and then you look at what the price was of that home. Okay, so that's median. Average just means you take all of the numbers in no
Yeah.
particular order,
Right.
and then you divide by 2080. Can't read
We're
that.
talking what, almost $100,000 difference there?
There's a $100,000 difference
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Because as soon as you have an $8 million home close, all of a sudden your
Skewed
average
Numbers are
Yeah.
squared.
is skewed in a way that is true. That is the average, but it's not really what we're trying to find out, right? It's not really, we're not trying to find out, we're trying to find out what is that point that we can look at every time and say, this is what's happening in the market. And a random $8 million sale doesn't tell us what's really going on for the masses. So that's why I don't use the average sales price.
Wow, man, this has been incredible.
Yeah,
We
it's been
can't
a-
thank you enough,
Can't
Chad.
thank you enough. Before we do cut off, we have some announcements I want to make at least. Number one, we've been talking about changing from Transaction Desk and Remind to our new product called Forms. It's going to be inside of SkySlope. All we're waiting for now is the rest of our Realty One forms to be uploaded into that, and you'll be able to be using SkySlope for everything, for doing, sending contracts, for everything. On top of that, just recently, like last Friday, we were notified that the powers to be have decided to extend Transaction Desk for the next 2 years. So if you do not want to come to Forms, if you do not want to touch Remind, you can stay right where you are in Transaction Desk and keep doing business as is. But we'd like you all to come to Forms and all be under our same umbrella. So that's kind of our goal, if you would. Second question, if you have any questions on any of that, you can call myself or Jim directly, and we will go over it with you. We're going to start the training on Forms probably next week.
I can't believe you just glossed over that so quickly.
I know. I was thinking the same
Transaction
thing.
Desk is staying for
two
two
more
more years.
Yeah,
You're not being forced to transfer over to Remind unless you like it. Remind still
I
exists.
have yet to speak to anyone who liked it. I mean,
Mike likes it.
but even he's got
Yeah,
it.
but
yeah.
he fought through it. Like,
Yes.
if he had the test
I have
back,
an
think he
I have
would.
an email trail with the folks that reminding him a mile long. I'm serious. He was their poster child for Remind.
But I got to tell you, if you like Transaction Desk, you're going to love Forms.
yeah,
It's that much simpler. I mean, literally, if you send something across to somebody, it puts the boxes right where it's supposed to be. Even if you're bringing in a form from the outside and you send it to them, it'll automatically put in what has to be filled out.
There's
inside.
always-
Incredible.
there's always a
Yeah.
method to John's madness because he glossed over it in hopes that you would work with Forms and get away from Transaction Desk. Correct, right? Because
But you-
Forms is so much easier.
There's so many people that are on Transaction Desk and haven't done Remind yet, so they're panicking. And
I
so I
know.
want to
Yeah,
calm
yeah.
them down. They can still use Forms or Transaction Desk, but they
So-
can come to us.
So don't buy stock and Remind anytime soon. What?
And
How would you like to be over there? I mean, they've been kicked to the curb 2 times now, and now for 2 more years.
2 years.
They are such an advanced company. The data that they're pulling in and the way that they're using the data is intuitive. As a company, they are making an MLS product that is really, really easy to use for the average person. But it's a change. And we're just seeing the Forms portion, and then we're seeing the Remind portion where you can search. But the way you can filter out data on that search is ridiculous. The information I can find out about
On Remind, you're saying?
on Remind
Oh,
is
okay,
just
okay.
incredible. There are MLSs in the country who are using their platform as their MLS, right? Not for logic, but they're using it as their MLS.
Well, that's their ultimate goal, right?
That, of course, is their ultimate goal for Las Vegas. Yes.
And lastly, I want to make an announcement that next Monday we won't have a radio show. It is Labor Day.
Right, Labor Day.
The following Monday is the 7th? No.
Don't ask me.
12th. The
Yeah, that Sounds
12th.
about right.
The following Monday, our next radio show, the 12th, we are going to have Mark Otero, our corporate broker, on site
Mhm.
in the radio show, and we'll be broadcasting out to all of the offices in Realty One. So just a preparation so you know who's coming on.
Again, Chad, wow.
Thank you
Amazing.
so much, Chad.
Amazing
You're very
stuff.
welcome.
Wow. The stuff we offer our folks at Realty One Group is just, and Chad has been good enough that luckily
Just
that
hit
wasn't
him
on
like
camera.
that. Just hit him.
Lucky that wasn't on camera. But cannot thank you enough, sir. Man,
It's my pleasure.
John?
That's it. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right.
All right,
Glad to have
guys.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. We're gonna head out and we're gonna have Alexis sign us out. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good week.